On tonight's episode of the CHGO Cubs related podcast, the Cubs come back and split 2 games with the Cardinals. Shota Imanaga is back, and we'll look ahead to what the Cubs need at the trade deadline. All on tonight's episode of the CHGO Cubs related podcast. This is the CHGO Cubs-related podcast driven by Toyota. Let's go places and bet 365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary. Use code CHGO365 at sign up. Hello, everybody. My name is Corey. I am joined, as always, by Brendan, and we are coming to you live on Thursday, June 26th. The Cubs storm back after a rough first 2 games of this 4-game set, the first time the Cubs and Cardinals meeting this season, and they take the final 2 on the backs of really strong starts from Matthew Boyd and a returning Shota Imanaga. Brendan, a lot of places to start. We have plenty to talk about tonight. We'll talk about Shota's return. We'll talk about Matthew Boyd. We'll talk about Ben Brown going down. Jamison Tyone struggling again. We'll talk about the offense. Matt Shaw with some good swings on Thursday. We can continue talking about Kyle Tucker, who is
We're going to be here for 4 hours.
Absolute pleasure to watch play baseball. We'll talk about it all. We'll talk about the trade deadline, some targets for the Cubs, the urgency behind those moves, et cetera, et cetera. But to start, Brendan, I think just generally a really nice response from the Cubs in the latter 2 games of this series. They go down 0-2, did not look like this was going to be a good series, and just really strong efforts on Wednesday and Thursday.
Absolutely. I mean, Shota coming back looking strong. The fastball shape looked good. We'll get into specifics, but having him perform well, Matthew Boyd looks like an ace, Corey, not to be sensational, but he's performing like what you would want from an ace, like a Justin Steele type performance. Kyle Tucker, your guy, you joke about this. I am legitimately serious. Every time I see Kyle Tucker taking that bat, I'm thankful. Like, he is the most consistent hitter I felt comfortable with. No offense to the 2016 era, but it reminds me of how I felt with like Derek Lee, like back then, just like heavy contact, heavy power. So it's been a thrill to have Tucker, but most importantly, that rebound over the past 2 days for me, huge.
Absolutely. Appreciate everybody being in the YouTube chat. I see a funny comment from Jeff in there, and you're not on the wrong show, but I am more of a sativa man, but we can get to that later. But I was really impressed with this because I think at this point in the season, especially, the Brewers took 2 or 3 from the Cardinals after the series over the weekend with the Mariners, the division lead slimming just a little bit. And it's really important for this team as they sit atop of this division to avoid slides, Brendan. And that's the thing you see where divisions tighten up. And after Monday and Tuesday, it felt like, man, like I'm feeling like we'll be lucky to get out of here with 1, with the way these first 2 games went, just how the rotation was feeling, things like that. And so for the Cubs, not only to take the next game and avoid a sweep, but to end up with a split after the way this series started, really, really nice. And that goes a long way because, you were almost losing 4 games in 4 days to the Cardinals, right? And then you would have lost, I think it would have made it 2.5 to the Brewers in that same span as the Brewers take 2 or 3 from the Pirates. Things would have been real tight. And maybe they can be after the weekend, et cetera, but the longer you can avoid that tightening, the better. So that I was really pleased with and really impressed with, especially the offense, Brendan, putting up numbers, 7 runs on Tuesday, but still losing that game, but coming back the next night and continuing to knock the ball around the ballpark, not letting up on this Cardinals pitching staff and Eric Fetty. And then in the finale, as always, it's nice to see anytime you're a fan of a team, a baseball team, it's nice to see them hold on and close out a tight, low-scoring game, especially on the road.
Yeah, and it's nice to have what I think is uniquely different about Craig Counsell versus David Ross is the anticipation for a week like this. We had Genesis Cabrera DFA'd because Craig explicitly said last week that with the weather conditions, which by the way, it's like 100 degrees in the Midwest, I feel like you guys are in hell, basically. The humidity, he was anticipating unpredictable pitching performances. So having the fresh arms, having the ability for Jameson Taillon when he's not at his best, getting shelled, to at least provide innings was valuable. Having Ben Brown, who got DFA'd, yes, but still provide innings was valuable. And you saw the value of that in Thursday's game. Shota only went 5 innings, first start back, 77 pitches, but you're able to layer on 4 innings of shutout bullpen because that bullpen was rested even when the starting pitching staff was getting shelled. So the biggest takeaway for me over the week was the foresight by the management. Yes, they did not look good for most of the week, but in a weird way, those losses, those bad performances, there was still the anticipation of protecting the staff that yielded results, especially on Thursday.
Yeah, and those are the tough ones where, there's a lot of games, and we've seen it throughout the year where, a guy will come in the 6th or 7th inning and, fans kind of are like, this guy? Really? Like, why here? And you're seeing it. So the Cubs, starting with that series against the Brewers on the 17th of June, they don't have an off day until Monday.
Right.
That'll be the 30th. So that's all stuff that it's very easy for, fans, I think, to question those moves and why take this starter out or why leave him in for that extra inning, things like that. But when you're playing straight, no days off from the 17th to the 30th, and a lot of tough competition in that stretch.
I mean, division contenders.
Yeah, you have to kind of defer to the manager there to have a plan of here's how we're attacking things. Here are the moments where we are going to lean on Brad Keller to get through this middle of the order. And here are those moments where we can't lean on Brad Keller because we can't do that every night.
Yeah. And, when you're getting shelled like Taillon and Brown, you got to eat it. You got to go into that 4th inning, that 5th inning. We've seen in years past where they're out early and the bullpen gets a little bit more taxed. And perhaps one reason why over the past few years pre-Counsell, that bullpen felt fragile towards the end of the year. This year is even more urgent to protect that bullpen because we have an unpredictable bullpen. Brad Keller's first full year in the bullpen in high leverage. Presley's getting older. We have Daniel Palencia, first year as a closer, first year in consistent every 2-3 appearances out of the bullpen. It's the best path forward for the Cubs to ensure that this performance sustains itself through August. And I thought that stood out for me this week.
Yeah. So plenty more to talk about. I do want to jump right in, though, to Shota. Obviously, a huge deal to get him back. Ben Brown going down. We've talked about this rotation. We've talked about the need for more starters, and that's going to continue to be a conversation. And we can talk about Matthew Boyd, too. I know we have in recent weeks, and just like what an incredible signing that is turning out to be. And especially for him to come back after, it didn't look crazy. But, a little shaken up after that liner in his last start. So to come back out and deliver that when the Cubs really needed a stopper there in the rotation was a big deal. But the Cubs get their ace back. If you want to call Justin Steele the ace, we go through this all the time. Whoever is the ace to you, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. But Justin Steele isn't coming back. So for 2025, Shota is our ace, and he was back. And I thought he looked really good, Brendan. 5 innings, just 1 hit, no runs, 1 walk, 3 strikeouts. But for me, it was very much the way he went about it. He had hitters off balance. He was getting a good amount of swing and miss. And, obviously he's going to ratchet up there, up the pitch count, up, going deeper into games. But I thought for a guy coming back, for how long he's been out and not really knowing what to expect, that was definitely a breath of fresh air to see him out there. And once he started going, Brendan, like to feel like, okay, Shota's back. Like we got our guy in the driver's seat here. Like we're going to get a good start today.
That's what it felt like. If you look at his spray chart to what he looked like, the stuff was commanded well. The fastball, I do believe, had room for improvement going forward. But the turquoise splitters that you see in this chart, they were dialed in on the lower portion of the plate. The sweepers, when he's going against lefties, was dialed in on the lower right portion of the plate. But those red fastballs, a little bit too much leakiness over the middle of the plate. But the fastball shape is so good that from that lower release point, having that carry, you're able to, when you do miss, generate weaker contact. So in a way, we have Shota with room for improvement, but it reminds you why guys with Shota stuff are so valuable. Because even when they're not at their best command-wise, which is what happened today, they're still able to have value and get through innings. And in Shota's case, throw a shutout in 5 innings.
Yeah. And so obviously great to see him back. We'll see how his next few starts go. And as he, again, starts to throw more pitches, go deeper in the games, when Craig and Tommy are able to kind of take the reins off a little bit from a guy coming back on a rehab start. But especially paired with Matthew Boyd on Wednesday, 6 innings, 3 hits, no runs, no walks, 3 strikeouts, a really great back-to-back from these two guys, and something that this team just desperately needed. Bad starts on Monday from Ben Brown, worse on Tuesday. I think, take your pick, right? Like just 2-run homers, like they were, it was a ticket giveaway in St. Louis. It was a bit much, but the bad starts from those guys. And I think I talked about this with Cody when I was in studio the other night, like really frustrating efforts from those guys, too many hits and bad pitches with 2 strikes, not being able to put guys away, giving up homers in pitchers counts. Boog talked about it with Ben Brown specifically, like non-competitive walks, pitches right out of the hand that are definitely not competitive, hitter right away, clocking it as a ball. And not only does it put the offense in a hole, of course, right? We saw that on both nights, 7 runs on Tuesday night, not enough. Each time the Cubs take a 5-2 lead, blown immediately. The Cubs go down early 2-0 in that game. Then obviously Monday, just a big mess all around. I think Monday was perhaps the worst game they played all season. From where I'm sitting.
Awful.
Yeah. But the performances from Boyd and Shota in particular highlight like just how important that stability. It's obvious, but the stability in the starting rotation, not only does it keep your offense in the game, sets a good pace, but it also takes some of the pressure off the bullpen. We talk about, some of the bullpen performances and the great things that we've seen, Drew Pomeranz continuing this incredible run that he's on, Brad Keller being this fireman who's coming in to face the middle of the order in the 7th inning or later in these high leverage spots. Like if you got to rely on these guys so much throughout the week, Brendan, you're not going to be getting those performances anymore. We're going to be talking about the gas running out for these guys much sooner rather than later. And so to get those performances from Boyd and Shota, so important in the grand scheme of things. And then of course, taking 2 in this series.
Right. And you're layering that on with some emerging offensive performances. Kyle Tucker has looked fantastic. He has all year, but even more so the last week. Michael Busch, I want to get into Michael Busch after this next ad break and talking about Brown, but he's performing like one of the better first basemen in the league. Pete's had some up and downs over the week, forgetting the number of outs, but overall the aggressiveness, the ability to continue barreling pitches has been encouraging. Nico Horner has been every bit of what you expect. So it's the emerging offensive profiles from Kyle Tucker this week, from Michael Busch, the consistency with Nico and PCA, and now Shota coming back, it leaves me encouraged. I feel good. And I told you on Monday after that bad loss, I said, there's no way this team is going to lose this division if you still have Seiya perform this well and Tucker perform this well and PCA perform this well. Rarely do you see 3 elite offensive contributors have a team not win that division, especially a division like this. So I have to remind myself when bad games do happen. You and I were furious, the game in which Pete forgot that out, right? But you do have to take a step back and kind of slap yourself in the face and remind yourself, you know what? There's a lot going on good here, and we'll forget about this in a week or 2.
Yeah, and look, ultimately, and we're going to hit our first ad break here. Like, teams still in a really good position, and good teams have slides. We've seen it from the Mets, the Yankees, the Dodgers at certain points. Like, all teams go through slides, and the Cubs still find themselves near the top of this league. So before we hit our first ad break, just a quick table set here. The Cubs, 48-33. They have a 3-game lead on the Brewers, a 4.5-game lead on the St. Louis Cardinals, 6 on the Cincinnati Reds. 48-33. That is the second most wins in the National League, behind the 51-win Dodgers, and tied for second most in Major League Baseball, third most behind the Dodgers and the Tigers, tied with the team they will face this weekend, the Houston Astros. So that's kind of brief table set for you. We will come back and get into more player specifics, trends, trade deadline talk, etc. after our first ad break.
Okay, Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary is your home for judgment-free cannabis shopping, a place where all kinds of visitors are welcome to explore, discover, and purchase a wide array of high-quality products. Sunnyside has everything you need to elevate your summer. It's your one-stop shop for all your cannabis needs. Sunnyside has an expertly curated menu with over 100 strains to choose from, plus easy online ordering and in-store pickup. If you're just starting out, Sunnyside has expert guidance and brands we know you'll love, like Good News and Mindy's. Incredible quality and consistent products. Visit Sunnyside.shop for bright buys every day, including 50% off your first 3 online purchases. Enter promo code HICHGO at checkout to qualify. Exclusions do apply. Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary, bright buys every day, only for 21 and over or Illinois medical card holders. And for existing users, use promo code CHGO for 50% off one Cresco Labs brand item. Summer's here, and you know what's non-negotiable before a first date, a first interview? Deodorant. Not just any deodorant, Mando whole body deodorant. This stuff changed the game. One swipe, and I'm confident everywhere. Yes, everywhere. Pits, privates, belly button. And what do I love? It's doctor-created, clinically proven, and actually beats a shower alone. My go-to scent, the bourbon leather, smooth, bold, unforgettable. Mando is now part of my daily routine right after the shower, all over, because feeling fresh should not stop at your armpits. Mando starter pick is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick, deodorant cream, tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice like mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. And as a special offer for listeners, new customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code that equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Use code CHGO at Mando, shopmando.com, SHOPMANDO.com. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando.
All right, Brendan, back with you. And I want to, I suppose we can wrap up the Cardinals series, and I'll just finish by, noting I love the effort from Daniel Palencia this afternoon. Locked in, ended up having, a bit of a tense situation there with the runners on base. And he put his money where his mouth was. And I liked him chirping back at a former Chicago Cub who is hopefully enjoying his new, better organization that he was so glad to get to. As they sit in third place, and Daniel Palencia shoved some fastballs down their throat.
I mean, to be fair, just a quick aside on the Willson stuff. World Series champion, understand the effort, grateful for it. That was so immature what he did. I mean, come on, as a team leader, you're supposed to be leader.
Dude, I kind of get the feeling that that kind of locked Palencia back in.
Yeah, it sure did. But
his control was off. It kind of dialed him back in inadvertently, which is sort of the problem with throwing an ill-advised fit at first base.
To be frank, quite embarrassing from Willson. To be in your 30s, the context. It's a 3-run save situation. Yeah. You're chirping back at a first-year closer. Come on.
I'm sure it's not enjoyable to take 100 up and in, but he's not doing it on purpose. And throwing a little fit like that serves no purpose. But enjoy the loss. We'll see you next time. And like I said, he wanted to be in St. Louis, better organization. Have fun.
Have fun.
All right. Have fun, my friend. We'll catch you at the World Series reunion in 20 years or whatever like that. We'll see.
We'll see.
I also, you can't really see it, but I got into the closet again.
Oh, look at that. Barizzo Souvenir Company.
Yeah, that was like a social media night giveaway several years ago or something like that.
What year was that? 2016?
I'm not sure that it was. I don't remember if it was
Actually, it may have been
2017.
2017.
Yeah, or 17. I'm not really sure. But all right, getting into things. Did you want to talk about the move to send Ben Brown down, or just your thoughts on that? I
do want to talk about that. Just a quick like 2-5 minutes.
I offered my thoughts on the episode the other night with Cody, so I don't know if I have any more to add, but definitely would like the pitch doctor's thoughts on the decision to do that. The obvious, sort of follow-up decision that we're likely to see more of Colin Ray, at least until the Cubs make some moves here.
If I were to tell you going into the year that Ben Brown would have a 10K per nine and a walk per nine of 3, you would be like, oh, he locked it in. Like that's what you want from a developing pitcher, right? If I told you Ben Brown had a FIP of 3.6 with those numbers, you'd be like, oh, he's better than I expected. He has the best whiff rate from the starting staff, but he's one of the least productive starters. So then the question is, well, why is that happening, right? You have these two very far off realities. One is he's not walking guys, he's striking out guys, but he's given up an enormous amount of contact. It doesn't make sense to me in terms of this being a sustainable trait. So either two things happen going forward. Number one, he continues to give up hard hit contact and the whiffs go down because that stabilizes. Or two, the whiffs and the walks stay as they are, and he figures out the slight hiccups and the glitches that lead to the hard contact, and the runs start to go down. Now, what we do know over the past 2 years is that Ben Brown gets whiffs. He's had over 150 innings now in the last 2.5 years where he's getting well above league average whiffs at both AAA and at the big league level. So my thinking with Ben Brown is like, dude, figure it out. like the stuff is so good. You're getting the whiffs. You're not walking guys. Whatever the reason for the glitches, the lack of competitive pitches every now and then that leads to hard contact, like that is manageable. It's not a stuff problem. It's not even like a walk problem. It's whatever is involving the sudden completely lack of competitive pitches over the middle of the plate. Am I confident we get there soon? I don't know. Would I bet that he eventually figures it out? Well, I think I would, just because he has so many innings of whiffs and no walks, hyperbole, no walks. But those guys typically end up being valuable pitchers. It's unfortunate we're in this position now with them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that sort of echoes my thoughts. And I do see some folks in the chat, including our guy, Cody Delmendo, who heard my dog Dexter barking in the background. He is named after Dexter Fowler. And to Cody's point, he is not watching Attitude Era wrestling, but he is watching more recent wrestling, which perhaps he's objecting to the pay-per-view.
Well, he wants to get in on this Ben Brown discussion. He's very
strong opinions on
very strong opinions about it.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I think, look, like at this point, I think the discussion we had about kind of mapping things out is going to extend. Hopefully, as you go forward here, Shota is a guy who can give you consistent length. Matthew Boyd, even if it's more on the 6-inning side, is showing you that you can usually rely on him for a definitely quality start that gives you some level of length, right? Yeah. And Cade Horton building up to that, but of course he's a rookie. You want to leave some room for growth and adjustments there. Jamison Tyone, I don't know. I mean, you've been monitoring him for a while. I don't know if you have specific thoughts there.
He's a league average pitcher. He's got. And then,
with Colin Ray, it's like you have to approach those starts with like, take what you can get. He can give you 4 innings, give up a few runs, keep you in the game, things like that. Like, then that's what you take. And on those days, you're going to need to be prepared with those long guys or guys who are potential long guys in that bullpen. And that's why you're going to continue to see them going through some of the options with those bullpen guys, keeping guys fresh, things like that. You can't go into those starts with Ray thinking like, oh yeah, he's going to give us 7 innings tonight. Hopefully we only need Keller and Palencia. Like, you got to approach it a different way. And I'm sure Craig and Tommy Hotovy do. But he had a really nice run, gave you more than I think you would have asked for or hoped for from Colin Ray. If I told you at the beginning of the year, yep, you're going to lose your top two starters, you're going to start every 5th day, and for the first 2 months, he's going to have like a 2.5 ERA, you take it. So like you take the lumps with where it is now, and you have to just assume by everything we're reading that this rotation does not look the same for very much longer. At a maximum, a month. And depending on how aggressive Jed is and how willing other teams are to make moves early, like we really might not be looking at this for that long. And I was even seeing, some good thoughts from our guy Niran, who's with us in the chat here tonight, about like even potential bridge guys. If you're like waiting to get to the big acquisition, if it's taking too long, maybe some other teams that are out of it, the Rockies come to mind, things like that. Smaller price, just get guys in there that are a little more reliable than what you have. There's a lot of different ways to approach this, even if you're not solely focused on the big fish and getting that like playoff ace, et cetera, if that's even available. So we'll see what they do. But yeah, I was fine with the decision to send Ben Brown down.
I wanted that decision. Like I think I think he needs it
for his long-term development. Yeah, and like you can't deal with starts that you had on Monday while you're trying to stave off, a few teams in the division.
I don't understand it. Like I'm curious if you find other pitchers in the past 3 years who have had those under the hood numbers, the strikeouts, the whiffs, and the walks. How often do we see this where you have such a big discrepancy in what you should produce versus what's happening? And I'd be curious if there's any traits that explain why those guys were performing poorly and who of those guys end up emerging as productive pitchers, right?
Yeah.
So that would be one thing I'd be curious about, because for me, like, dude, it doesn't make sense. It does not make sense that he's performing as poorly.
Well, again, he's young. He's played different roles, been a long guy, been a starter up and down.
But the majority of the
time,
he's
to
missing
develop those
bats.
Things, man. Yeah.
He's missing bats most of the time.
Well, and look, you're, hopefully, Jordan Wicks working his way back, Javi Assad working his way back. And, again, who's a starter, who's a reliever, what these roles look like, does it even matter? That's all to be determined in time. But I think, in addition to going out and trying to get a big fish at the deadline, maybe literally a big fish, right? Sandy Alcantara is a big guy. He plays for the Marlins, Brendan. I don't know if you understood the joke, but
I did.
You need as many reinforcements as possible. And I think should be clear to everyone when you saw, the top 2 starters go down, Steele not coming back, but even just the relief situation. Like you're getting incredible runs from some of these guys. Are they sustainable? Are they going to continue at this level the entire year? And even if you believe that, you need to keep them fresh in order to do it. Right. Like to get Brad Keller to October and even late September, where you're calling on him in the 7th inning every game because you're going to the 2, 3, 4 hitters. You can't do it every night. Like he's not going to survive. We've seen that with Julian Merriweather, ALLCITY,
Steve Cishek,
Mark Leiter Jr. Yeah, Steve Cishek, who hopefully all his arms are still intact in his retirement. But yeah, like you just need reinforcements. So you need those reinforcements, and then it's going to be on Jed to go out and get those guys that, really you are relying on night to night to give you those ace level performances, go really deep into games, and ultimately be the guys that you're super confident in saying, hey, it's, game 2 against the San Diego Padres. Like you're getting the ball, like you better be ready to pitch to Tatis and Machado, in a road playoff game.
Yeah. It's going to be fascinating too, because the Dodgers, when they won the series last year, they didn't have their starting pitching staff intact. They had a bullpen game against San Diego to survive elimination. So one of the questions I have as we approach July is, will the resources be spent on those aces, or will they be spent on volume in terms of getting guys who, to your point, may have more control, may have some options, may not be the tantalizing top-end starter, but you can buy 2-3 innings. You can get Keller to September. And then maybe in the playoffs, you're looking at 2-3 inning piggybacks all the time. Not from your starters, but from like your bull. I'm being serious here.
I'm laughing because I'm thinking in my head, like, don't threaten Craig with a good time. Like he seems
I don't want that, by the way.
Maybe not. I'm sure Craig doesn't either, but I think he probably gets a kick out of like game planning and, this guy's getting us 7 outs. This guy's going to get us the next 6, like that type of vibe.
Dude, I don't think Craig likes that stuff. Like, I think he just likes to sit back and
any
relax.
manager would rather put John Lester out there, let him go 9 innings, and then you call it a day. We don't need the bullpen phone because I'm not calling it, right?
That's right.
But they don't make them like that anymore.
No, they do not.
All right. So we should hit our second ad break here in a second. When we come back, I do want to talk about Michael Busch. I think we'll continue talking about the deadline. I think we want to have more of a discussion on the pitching. And also, do the Cubs need another bat? Where might that fit in? We can yell about the lineup together if everybody wants, but then take a look at some of the, just trends and performances that are going on. I think we'll start with Michael Busch, but let's take our second ad break here. We'll be back in a minute.
Just like your favorite team needs that home field advantage, your house needs a home floor advantage, and that's where Empire Today comes in. Forget wandering big box store aisles, trying to do it yourself. I've been there, thought I could handle it myself, a flooring project on my own. Let's just say my living room still haunts me. Empire Today makes it easy. Their flooring pros behind the showroom come to you so you can see what looks best with your couch, your lighting, your vibe. There's no guesswork, no hauling, no uh-oh moments, just clear pricing, expert help, and install as soon as tomorrow. Schedule your free in-home estimate today because some things are just better at home. CHGO listeners can receive a $350 discount when using promo code CHGO. Yes, you heard that right. A $350 discount with code CHGO. Restrictions do apply. Visit empiretoday.com/CHGO for full details. Nobody, and I mean nobody, likes being hot, sweaty, and stuck to the couch. That sticky, humid summer air, the worst. Nothing beats stepping up into your home and feeling that crisp, cool blast of air conditioning. But here's a question. Is your AC ready for another brutal Chicago summer? Four Seasons Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electric has been keeping Chicagoland cool for over 50 years. And after 2024 became our hottest year ever, so it's time to act. O'Hare even hit a heat index of 114 degrees last summer. Imagine sweating through that with weak AC. With Four Seasons, expert techs handle everything: installation, maintenance, repairs, and you'll never pay extra for nights, weekends, or holidays. These are your trusted pros you want in your home. Schedule your AC tune-up today and save $50 plus get a 1-year no breakdown guarantee. Gotta love a promise like that. Call 866-4 Seasons and beat the heat before it beats you. Your trusted local experts are Four Seasons Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electric. Visit fourseasonsheatingcooling.com for all their special offers and money-saving coupons. That's fourseasonsheatingcooling.com.
Back with you, Brendan. We'll continue talking about deadline stuff, pitching, etc. But I do want to transition to Michael Busch, since you mentioned it. Had a really nice series here in St. Louis, big homer in the finale on Thursday. And I want to read some rankings to you, Brendan. This is all qualified first basemen in Major League Baseball, not just the National League. Michael Busch, 4th in WRC+, 7th in WAR, 6th in home runs, 7th in runs batted in, and 5th in on-base percentage. By all accounts, to me, Brendan, that sounds like a top 10, maybe top 5 first baseman in baseball.
I'm surprised he's doing this. I thought we would get maybe like league average offense from Busch, frankly. And I'm seeing the numbers last year through April. I'm thinking, okay, maybe there's a little bit of a breakthrough from Busch. He had 5 home runs in April. The May was tough. Then you remember all the swing speed stuff came out, all that stuff. And he was in the lowest 20th percentile. I'm thinking, dang, maybe Busch is not that guy. But as time has gone on, we learned more about his profile. We've learned that he has a pretty steep swing plane. It's a pretty high launch angle, if you will. And he has a unique ability to barrel the ball up with regularity. And he's doing that more now than he ever has done. So this year, his average exit velo is 65 in the 65th percentile, but his barrel rate is 85th. His launch angle sweet spot, I'm talking about the swing steepness, 90th percentile. If you look at similar guys in his territory, you're going to see Cody Bellinger. You're going to see those guys that we know survive on higher BABIP. And that was always the thing with me and Michael Busch. Can he survive the BABIP? Is this randomness? Is this sustainable? And so far, we've seen to some degree it is. Now, the question is, can he survive lefties? Do we need a platoon bat? What does that mean for Justin Turner? Do we DFA him? Do we go out and make a trade for first base? Those are all questions the front office will have to weigh over the next 3 to 4 weeks, but it doesn't take away from me just the continuous improvement we've seen from Busch, and he is exceeding my expectations. And that trade of Jackson Ferris and Zahir Hope, I get it. Hope has been one of the better prospects, but Busch has produced nearly 4 wins for this team in 2 years in a World Series window. So, kind of miss me with that argument and that fear.
I said this a few weeks ago. Like I've been ready to call this a W for Jed, regardless what happens with those prospects.
Because as you mentioned, those 2 guys will not produce for WAR. It doesn't take away their top prospect status, but the likelihood is they don't produce that much.
And, not to mention like producing at this level at the major league level is very difficult.
Right.
Most prospects don't do it. But in addition to that, who else was going to play first base for this team?
Frank Schwindel.
Right. Like it was a massive position of need and they filled it. Jed took a big swing and he paid it off. I want to read 2 stat lines to you. You tell me who these 2 players are. All right. Okay. And I'm not telling you if we're changing topics or not. So tell me who these 2 players are.
Sure.
Player 1, their slash line, 273 average, 363 on base, 506 slug, 376 weighted on base average, 144 WRC plus.
Okay.
These
are all Cubs, by the way, correct?
Yes. Player 2, 278 average, 387 on base, 512 slug, 384 weighted on base average, 145 WRC plus. So very similar lines. Can you tell me who the 2 players are?
Name the OBP for the first guy again.
The OBP for the first guy, 363.
363. Okay, that's Seiya Suzuki.
No.
Really? These are all Cubs?
One of them is not a current Cub.
Oh, you're killing me.
Oh, sorry.
I thought you said he was a Cub.
No.
I'm gonna say the first guy's not Busch. Second guy's Busch, right?
The first guy is Busch. The point is how similar they are.
Gosh, who's the second guy?
Our guy in the chat's got it. It is 2015 Anthony Rizzo.
Okay. Now the pushback there is going to be, will Rizzo play against lefties every single day?
I just compared the offensive slash lines. That's it.
I'm just saying the pushback will be that, but it is crazy to compare the 2 in that fashion,
and only in those bare offensive slash lines. And yes, like our guy W Collins in the chat, like Rizzo wasn't platooning.
That's right.
Like I am not comparing them. Like trust me, Anthony Rizzo is as revered in my household as basically anyone walking planet Earth. All right, or previously walking planet Earth. So. Like, you don't have to tell me about Anthony Rizzo, right? I only was reading that because it's just quite interesting to see how similar some of those lines are. That's it.
And the defense too. I mean, like
just as a way to highlight just how good Michael Busch has been. He has a long way to get even like half of the career that Anthony Rizzo put together and the impact in Chicago. So by no means comparing that whatsoever. But I do think that Busch's performance is a bit like underrated. And so I wanted to read those lines just to highlight, like, Michael Busch is having a really good season, Brendan, at the plate, and a really valuable one for this team. And yeah, look, I mean, I think we can use this as a transition to some of the Ben's conversation. Busch has not been great against lefties in his career, but I think obviously there comes a point where in order to get better against them, you have to hit against them more regularly. I know we haven't been doing the platoon stuff as much, but I would say that a key deadline conversation for this team is going to be, do they need another bat? Everybody's yelling about Dansby Swanson hitting in the 5-hole. But when you look around the lineup, like, you can pick a different option, but especially when Carson Kelly wasn't going well, et cetera, they're not great. And you and I have talked a million times about treating Dansby as Dansby.
Have you felt extra pressure from Dansby this week? I feel like Dansby's been getting throttled this week.
Well, again, that's what we talked about, though. Like, that if you want to be mad that he's in the 5-hole, that's fine. He's not a 5-hole hitter. I'm not trying to sell you that. I've never tried to sell you that. But that's the point. It's not Dansby's fault. He's not writing the lineup. I don't think it's Craig's fault either. Like, this goes to the front office. Like, you can't put together an offense where your manager's thinking their best option. He explained this today too, about Dansby having the power, like, and the matchups against lefties and this stuff. Like, if that's if that's his best option, or what he feels is his best option, like, that's a roster problem. It's not a Dansby Swanson problem. You can't look at him and say, you need to be a 5-hitter. Never was, never's going to be. Don't stop asking him to do it. Like, hold him to a realistic expectation. But
he's making 177 million. That's the expectation.
Worth every penny.
That's
like,
the expectation.
Whatever. Yeah. But yeah, like, I agree with you. I wouldn't write a lineup with him in the 5-hole if it were up to me. But like, who are you putting in there?
If you have to
I'd put Nico right now. But yeah,
that's my point.
And I wouldn't split up the lefties. I don't care about that.
But that's my point. So if you're arguing, okay, Nico bat 5th, these decisions should never be debatable. It should be okay. Say as your 3-hole hitter. Kyle Tucker's in your top 4 in some capacity. PCA at this best rate is also top 4 batting cleanup. In years past, it was not debatable who your 5-hole hitter is. If you have to squint and think, maybe Nico does make sense in the 5th spot, then you need to upgrade in some fashion.
Yeah. So again, let's use that as a jumping off point, because we've talked about this before too. Like, I think a key issue for this team is you envisioned a role for Justin Turner, and it just hasn't happened that way. You envisioned him as a guy who was going to be reliable and hit against lefties. And, whether that was going to be a strict platoon with Michael Busch, that I'm sure a lot of people aren't interested in, even as a concept if Turner was going well, or just someone that spells these guys as a DH, as a first baseman. I know they threw him at 3rd, I think one day, right? Like late in the game or something like that. But I don't think you can do that on a regular basis. No. But overall, right now, like a 198, 286, 248 slash line, like, that power has not been there at all that we've seen from Turner, even in the past. And that homer only coming in Cincinnati, which is obviously one of the easier places to hit. A 57 WRC plus, a below replacement level player. And I think the issue is you've got 4 roster spots right now, as I see it, where you're trying to figure out who can hit. One of them is Matt Shaw, who's a 23-year-old playing lights out defense at 3rd base and who is developing, right? Like, so you're okay with that. That's up to the front office. That's up to them to decide how they feel about his development. They've already sent him down once. We'll see. Took some good swings on Thursday. I was bummed that liner to 3rd, Arenado was right there. And of course, perhaps like the most sure-handed guy to be standing over there to catch that, because that was like almost a bases clearing double. That would have been a huge hit for Matt Shaw. But the earlier, his first at bat, the single, really nice piece of hitting, looked good, took some good swings on Thursday. So hopefully a sign of things to come. But then you've got 3 other roster spots. Birdie is there, veteran, played 3rd base at an adequate level on defense and run. Brujan's there, positional versatility, can't hit, but he can run. And then Justin Turner, can't hit, can't run,
can't field,
sort of play first base, right?
So
the problem is, like, it's just not going to work. And I see people talking about it too, like, and we can jump into this at some point too. Remarkable offense from the Cubs catching trio. Now Reese McGuire has basically replaced the role of early season Carson Kelly, not to the same degree, but like, it's really nuts. They keep just throwing these guys in there. But if it weren't for that, I think you'd be way more feeling like we have 4 roster spots we're using, and like, these guys can't hit. And when you're looking for that middle of the order guy against lefties, I think you really wanted that to be Justin Turner, putting up like a 115-ish WRC plus, like he did in the second half last year, slotting him in there, limited starts and things like that, but just a consistent, like, veteran bat doing his thing in that, 5 or 6 hole against lefties. And you don't have that. He's borderline unplayable. So how long they want to give that run? I also thought it was telling. I said this in the studio when I was watching the game with Cody the other night, when Craig pinch hit Reese McGuire for Carson Kelly late in that Cardinals game on Tuesday. When they were making the decision, I said to Cody, like, this would be righty on righty, but I might go Turner here. Like, go for the guy who's because they just needed somebody to put the ball in play,
I
try to find a hole.
I understand.
Right?
You're a Justin Turner guy. I get it.
Stop. But like his ability, like, hey, there's a big hole on the right side. I'm going to wait for a pitch. I'm going to poke it to the right side. He does have that skill. It's been a skill of his. And so I thought they would do it. I thought telling, though, that they went to Carson Kelly. And I was thinking, and I saw some other folks talking about this, like if this, I know this isn't against a lefty, but if you're not going to him here in this spot, like where you would just defer to the veteran, and you're going to your other catcher who's also a righty, I'm like, what is he on the team for? And I'll say this, and we have to hit our third ad break here. Justin Turner has been what I can only read and gather, like I would use the word invaluable asset to this clubhouse. He seems to be giving a ton of advice to guys like PCA and Matt Shaw. And like, there's countless articles that I've read, and I'm not in the clubhouse, but the sense that you can get is that it is really valuable to have in there. But Brendan, you only get so many roster spots. And at some point that stuff is all nice, but lineup's got to hit. Guys have to have those reinforcements and those, platoons and things like that. So we can continue on this in a second, but that I think is going to be one area at the trade deadline this team, really needs to give some serious consideration to. But we'll talk about that and some other stuff when we get back from this ad break.
Okay, Cubs fans, if you're thinking about upgrading your drive this season, Toyota's 2025 lineup is definitely worth a look. There's the RAV4. It's versatile, reliable, and always ready for a little adventure. Summer starts here. From adventures to weekend escapes, our versatile lineup is ready to ride with amazing deals to match. So visit your local dealer and find yours today. Go to toyota.com or stop by your local Chicagoland dealership today. Toyota, let's go places. Also, we have a very cool CHGO promo right now. You can see it on the screen. You can become a diehard for a $36 intro offer. Normally goes for $80 per year. So right now, hit that intro offer of $36. Go to allchgo.com for the latest information and how you can join the thousands of CHGO diehards in our community. You can even go to our CHGO Discord, communicate with us, chat Cubs, Bulls, Bears, Hawks, even Sox if you want today. All right, let's talk about your next weekend escape, or maybe just your next big night out, because Potawatomi Casino Hotel Milwaukee has everything you need in just one spot. We're talking thousands of the latest slots and table games. If you're ready to refuel, you've also got a ton of amazing restaurant and bars to choose from. Whether you're feeling fancy, just want a quick bite, they've got you covered. You don't even need to leave the property. You can stay in style at their luxury hotel, just steps away from what many call the Midwest best sportsbook. Heading to a ball game this summer as well. Start your day right at Potawatomi, hit the sportsbook, then head out to the game, maybe even the Cubs game. It's all right there. Super convenient. Milwaukee's got a full summer lineup, concerts, festival, sports, you name it. Potawatomi is the perfect home base for all of it. Potawatomi Casino Hotel Milwaukee. Your win is waiting. Go check it out.
All right, Brendan, back with you. And I do want to jump in with one thing. Everybody needs to put this on their calendar. We have a little bit of work to do as a fan base. On Monday, phase 2 of the All-Star Game voting starts. And no disrespect to our guy, Carson Kelly, but it's not my priority. If Pete and Kyle Tucker do not start that game, it's a crime. All right? So everybody, I think you get 5 votes. Get your emails ready. Get over to MLB.com.
How does it even work? I don't even know.
It's very convoluted. There's rounds now. It's a whole thing. But you just got to vote for PCA. PCA, Kyle Tucker, and Carson Kelly all made it to the second round of voting to start the game.
Okay.
We got to get them in.
Where's Nico in this? Is Nico in this thing?
Those are the only 3 that are now eligible to start based on how the voting goes. So that's what it is.
What about Boyd? Can you vote for Boyd?
No, don't the coaches do that? Coaches and players do pitchers.
You can see I'm very in tune to the All-Star game.
Yes, very, very important to us.
Very important.
Look, and I mean, Pete and Kyle better start that damn game.
Okay.
All right. If I have to look at a bunch of Dodgers because their fans stuff the ballot box and Teoscar Hernandez starts over Kyle Tucker.
No, it's not going to happen.
Contract the sport at that point. All right. You want to finish on some of these bench thoughts? I mean, I do think that, like, I know Eugenio Suarez is a popular name that's going around there. That, obviously would be something maybe you're looking at if you're deciding that, you're not going to continue to give Shaw the runway, depending on how this next month goes. And we'll see how they handle that. Obviously, it's sort of a tricky situation, especially because he's playing such good defense at third base. But there's a lot of names. And at this point, you're getting nothing from these 3 bench spots. Now, look, you look around the league, not everybody has a loaded bench that they're just leaning on all the time, but you need some production from this. It is really taking a toll on the lineup, that especially when you call it negate Busch and PCA a little bit when there's a lefty on the mound. Their numbers obviously take a hit when a lefty is on the mound, and you don't have those guys to kind of supplement the lineup. I'm not saying replace them in the lineup, but fill up the middle of the lineup that they're obviously normally occupying against the lefties. So that is an area where I expect them to look, because it's also one of those things. I know, Brendan, first of all, you may be shipping out some of these offensive prospects if you're going to try to get some pitching or make this team better. But in addition to that, I know people are going to say, well, I'd like to see Ballesteros, or I'd like to see Casey, or any of these guys. It's a really tough role for a rookie to come and play. And that's why Ballesteros isn't on the team at this exact moment. They would love to see if he was hitting and doing that stuff. But you have to keep in mind that they're going to come up and probably just sit on the bench. So that's a really tough role for a bench guy to occupy. So I do expect them to kind of look at something like that over the course of this deadline.
Yeah, and frankly, you expected more from Turner, but also Birdie as well. I know he's only making $1 to $2 million, but his production has been disappointing as well. I thought we would be able to spell Nico a little bit more. One of my, worst case scenarios is you have a middle infield injury. You're one injury away from really being stretched depth-wise. And I doubt it happens, right? There's no reason to believe that there's going to be some type of reversion or health-related problem, but you are one injury away from being really stressed from your depth. So whether it be through DFAing Brujan or going out and DFAing Turner to get back more of a stable infield depth piece, whatever it ends up being, I think you need to make not just one, but potentially 2 moves. You're in a World Series, a bona fide World Series contention year. You can't leave anything up for a chance. I'm not even asking for getting back an average player. I'm asking for slightly above a replacement level in the case that you do need that depth.
Yeah. And it's going to be interesting to see how they approach this and just what they prioritize. But I think, to your point, a lot of what I think this team needs is not necessarily the absolute marquee people, if that makes sense. They definitely need a top of the rotation arm if it's available and if the price is right, et cetera. It's something that they just need, a guy that they can pitch in the playoffs. But even just, as we said, upping the depth in this rotation, the reliability, and getting production on the bench is just something that's going to be very necessary for this team. So even if some of the moves aren't super exciting, it's the type of thing where they need to supplement some of this stuff. And I'm curious to see what Jed's priorities are. If there's a big price to pay for one of these pitchers and things like that, is he willing to do it? But to your point, and I've said this before, this is an opportunity for this franchise. And I know some people, and I see it in my replies on social media, that they don't believe in this team, this, that, or the other. But this is a really good opportunity. Right now, you've got a 3-game lead in the division. You're almost at July. You have the resources to make this team better. You're getting MVP level play from multiple people on your team. As we just highlighted, you're getting a really great outcome from someone like Michael Busch, Matthew Boyd. We're talking about him being on the All-Star team. You just got Shota back. It's not perfect, right? And I know some people they're always obsessed with man by man comparing, are we as good as the Dodgers? It doesn't matter. This is a good opportunity. You need tickets to the dance. Oh, Cody's here. You need tickets to the dance.
We don't hear you.
And you have to take those shots. So I'm not suggesting that they sell everything, mortgage the farm, just deplete it for the next 10 years to try to make 2025 work. But you don't know how long you have Kyle Tucker. PCA is playing out of his mind, and I expect him to have a great career. But you never know if you're going to get like this lightning in a bottle thing that you're seeing right now to this exact level again from Michael Busch. This team has a legitimate shot. The division is open. You're not looking at another team in this division winning 105 games, so you feel like you have no shot. Like, you've got to put in a good effort at this deadline, fix the things that you can, and the areas that you think like, hey, if we get into the playoffs, what's going to be our biggest hurdles, and try to address them.
Yep.
That would be my sentiment.
Look at the smile on this guy's face.
I would imagine, I didn't know Cody was jumping on, but I would imagine he's here to yell about Willson Contreras.
Yeah. I couldn't help myself tonight, guys. One time I texted Corey and was like, hey, I got nothing going on tonight. If you want someone to just come on and yap for an hour, like, I'm down. And then he never texted me back. So tonight I was just like, I'm jumping on. It's surprising. But I did say in the chat earlier, blink if you guys want me to come on and go off about Willson Contreras. And you guys blinked. So I am here.
Here he is.
Well, I mean, I think you and I did pretty good work on social. You know, we carried our weights. But so I mean, ridiculous.
I'm not trying to swerve you guys' conversation, and we can go to overtime if you guys want that in 5 minutes. But I just thought what he did at the end of today's game, kind of like it honestly made me feel like, man, like, how many times did he do that when he was a Cub? And now I'm like seeing the other side, like from the opposing side. Like, I just thought what he did today was just so immature. I mean, it like, who is throwing at you on purpose when you're like in the 9th inning of a 3-run game and you get hit to bring the tying run up? Like, it just, I get it. It's up and in 100 miles per hour. But at the same time, they're like, he's not throwing at you on purpose, considering the situation. And I know that we talked, or not we, but the discourse whenever, like, all those times he got hit by the Brewers. And I remember the Cubs tweeting that video of all the hit by pitches the Brewers did to him back in like 2020 or whatever it was. And like, I remember seeing it. And at the time it riled me up. Like, yeah, like, why are we throwing at Willson Contreras on purpose? And, you know, maybe in some ways now being on the other side, it's like, me personally, maybe I just regret some of that support.
Well, it's like one of those things they always say for certain guys, you know, like, you'd love him if he was on your team, right? Yeah. And I hear that a lot, I think, especially from like White Sox fans. I think we think like AJ Pierzynski is easily one of the most annoying people ever to play baseball.
Well, he is.
But all the White Sox fans are like, well, you know, when he was on our team, we loved it. We loved the stuff and things. But, and I see it in the chat from somebody, like, you know, the kind of lack of attention to detail, just like poor defense, did give the Cubs the 3rd run today. So we appreciate Willson getting baited, you know, by PCA was on 3rd, Dansby was on 1st, right? Like, Dansby going to 2nd. You almost never see runs score on that play. It was really funny to watch that work. I was like, well, that's an easy insurance run. These guys aren't even paying attention.
That inning, I might have missed you guys if you talked about that inning alone. Like, PCA owned that inning. Like, we didn't. You could do the breakdown of that inning and make it a case to why PCA should be the NL MVP. Like, and there's been many other innings like that. So,
well, and that was one too where, you know, it does highlight, like, he didn't have his best offensive day, but all he needs is one chance, right? It was a swinging bunt on the 3rd base line. You couldn't have thrown that ball down there any better. And all he needs is, you know, one opportunity to take over the game and make a big play. And, you know, a 5-minute span, he can do something that's just so significant. So, yeah, I mean, that was definitely good to see. And I don't know, man, we talked a little bit about it, but, you know, we'll love Willson forever. Flags fly forever. But I mentioned it in a reply to you, Cody, like, but several guys, like, even from that World Series team, have ended up on the St. Louis Cardinals, and somehow they managed to come away with it without the rest of us, like, hating their guts when we see them. And
I mean, in a way, that's what made Willson good. Is that impulsiveness, right? But also, it's what made him hated by many fan bases, including a huge segment of our own fan base right now. I mean, I can understand as a fan, you give your money, you expect some respect. So when he comes out saying, "Oh, this organization is better," some fans take offense to that. So, all right, well, I'm not going to spend hundreds of dollars buy your jerseys, and you're saying this. So I completely understand that as well. But from Wilson's perspective, he's thinking the Cubs didn't want me. I'm going to get back at them. This is, who I am. So that's that impulsiveness, right? That's to some degree that like perhaps immaturity as well, that he still has not yet grown out of. And quite frankly, representative of why he's not the catcher. And what we've heard from other players in the organization who said, he just doesn't have the wherewithal to handle this diverse organizational pitching infrastructure.
Yeah. So before we continue here, we are going to wrap up on Fast Channel. We are going to head into overtime, stick to the CHGO Cubs YouTube page, and we'll catch you in overtime here. Yeah.
Would you have gone to overtime if I didn't show up?
Probably.
Okay.
I don't know that we had too much more to dive into. I think we were pretty well wrapped up on, like the trade deadline and things like that. I was trying to think, Brendan, of stuff we didn't necessarily touch on tonight. And I mean, we didn't look ahead to this series in Houston. This is going to be a tough one. It's a team with the same amount of wins as the Cubs, obviously an interesting ballpark. And unfortunately, these are my least favorite seasons of the year, you guys, because one, anytime they play a good team, God forbid they lose the series, then we get, in droves, they can't beat good teams. They're not actually good, like they just clean up on the Pirates, which isn't true. It's demonstrably false, but whatever.
Yeah.
But then you've got Kyle Tucker coming back. You've got Isaac Paredes, who is doing exactly as expected, just ripping homers into the Crawford box. I'm glad that worked out for everybody. Like, that's one of those where it was like, this makes a lot of sense for them, and the value is so much higher. And like, I don't know, guys, 3 games. So Cam Smith he's got 5 homers on the year. He's going to hit 4 minimum in these 3 games, just so that we all have to deal with it.
No, I mean, I think Matt Shaw's going to hit 3 in this series separately. So don't worry about it.
If Colin Ray pitches on Saturday, he's going to hit one off Colin Ray.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
I don't know about that.
Into the Crawford box too, because Mouse Park.
I will say though, Matt Shaw in the last game on Thursday, driving the ball to right field, that line drive to R now that you mentioned, Corey, the swings did look better. I'm thinking, Crawford boxes, just get a line drive up there, maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe even 4, Let's get a little crazy.
Well, and you talk about that too. When we were in the studio the other night, Cody, we forgot to give our praise to Nico Horner for his first home run. I'm surprised you didn't have an arrest warrant out for us, Brendan. We didn't even mention it on the show.
Well, I just come.
We were angry. Give us a break.
I never have any doubts about Nico Horner. And you guys should know by now not to have doubts about the guy.
I didn't have any doubts. I'm saying we didn't celebrate his homer. We were yelling about Jameson Taillon.
No, you don't need to celebrate his homer. It's fine. It's to be expected. That's how you approach that.
I have been celebrating and putting my hand up that I was wrong about the fact that
you wanted to trade him.
I did. I didn't say that.
No. You were on the show.
Fine. I'll go
on the show. We had this conversation. Sarah, go get the clip.
I talked plenty about trading Nico Horner, but it was all because we are in the same situation.
How's Bryce Miller doing, dude? How's Bryce? Go look at Bryce Miller right now. Dude's he hurt his elbow.
Bryce Miller too. You would have taken Bryce Miller.
That's not true at all. That is not true at all. I have the tweets for that as well.
You would have taken Brian Wu too.
Brian Wu I did think about, but I was never going to trade Nico.
Yeah. Well, okay. The point is that yes, I talked plenty about trading Nico, and heck, after the trade deadline last year, I said, I'm interested in how him and Matt Shaw coexist together, and he's played way better defense at third than anyone thought.
Yeah, now he's like 3 Gold Glovers.
Right. My biggest thing about Nico that's so impressive, and you basically tweeted it today, is and I've said this multiple times on the show too with Luke, that he's coming off season where he had surgery and didn't spent the entire time rehabbing. He didn't do anything else other than rehab, and I expected a slow start offensively like last season, and he came out guns a-blazing, and he's just been keeping it up. I don't really care that he doesn't have any homers. I gave up on the whole, can he be a 15 homer guy? The defense is so good. and he makes contact. He doesn't strike out, right? Like all those things bring a ton of value. I think it's frustrating that he can't get an all-star bid, largely probably because he doesn't have slug, but I just think he's such a valuable player for any team. I think he's severely underrated across the league, and I'm mad at myself for entertaining the talk.
Well, and so now
we all
just
make
kind
mistakes,
of
it's okay.
just kind of looking at his overall line now, 294, 336, 368, good for a 101 WRC plus, all while playing, basically best in the league defense at second base. He's an excellent base runner. Just an extremely valuable player. And we talked about it, when there were all those rumors about trading it, like just how valuable a player like that is. You've got some of these guys now. Of course, you have Kyle Tucker in there adding some slug. PCA is, has decided that he's going to be on a 40 homer pace, things like that. But having a guy like that in the middle or later portion of the lineup makes things so much harder on these pitchers, because you're dealing with these sluggers, you're dealing with these guys that might take you 450 feet. And then you've just got this contact menace in Nico Hoerner. And like, I look forward, one of the things that hopefully gets paid off if this team wins the division, makes the playoffs, is seeing some of these guys in that environment for the first time. Like, I want to see Nico Hoerner in a runners and scoring position with the game on the line in the playoffs. Because at this point, there's almost no one I feel better than coming up at the plate and having the bat in their hands in those moments. And I just look forward to seeing him operate in those contexts, because the little things that he does and the way that he plays the game, maybe they don't look flashy and they don't show up in big numbers throughout the season, but when they matter is October. Those cold nights in October, you need people to run the bases well, make those great plays. You had a few of them in St. Louis where you're taking away a base hit or keeping the ball in the infield in a key spot, etc., and just coming through in those big spots and getting those big hits. And I need it. There's a lot of things I need in the playoffs with the Chicago Cubs.
You said all of them today.
Yeah, Nico. First on the list is like Kyle Tucker hitting like a 500-foot home run onto Sheffield on a cold October night. And I'm just going to lose my mind, right? But Nico, like getting that shot finally in the playoffs and like showing that value, I needed bad.
Yeah, and we let this be a learning experience too, because two of the most projectable traits, I'm looking at you, Cody, two of the most projectable traits as someone of Nico's age category is speed and contact. At that age, you rarely see fluctuations for those two traits. Then you add in defense at that age. So when I was thinking, and we still think this way about projecting value in a win window, Nico always has and continues to show the most projectable, lowest variable production. So that is an anchor. So when you're paying $11 million for that, your range is slim. It's going to be 2, at worst 2 WAR, but in reality, probably 3 to 4 WAR in the next 2-3 years. And so that is why it never made sense. And ultimately why I think the front office did not trade Nico, and they made the right call.
Yeah. Well, this is not defending myself, but I do want to point out what Niren says. He says it was because of the roster, not Nico. And what I was trying to say is that, if they just signed Max Fried, I wouldn't have been pushing any of that at all. You know what I mean? But I don't want to go down this path about spending and all that. The team's in first place. You know what I mean? You know what I'm getting at, but I'm not going down the path.
I know.
That you really wanted a Jew in the rotation? Is that what you mean?
I wish we did have Fried, though.
It would be nice. A fellow, I certainly wouldn't complain about it. My grandma would really.
But is he a Fried man, or is he just Fried?
Well, he's Fried. I'm Fried.
Is it Fried or Fried? I never know.
It's Fried.
Fried.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So let's wrap up here. But just before we do, one final look at this series in Houston. Friday, Cade Horton. Saturday, Colin Ray. Sunday, Jamison Tyone. To me, fellas, this is really clear. Houston has the same record as you, 48-33. They're a really good team. You've got to get better pitching efforts from on Saturday and Sunday. And of course, your expectations are managed. I'm not asking Colin Ray to go 8 innings and, pitch a shutout here against the Astros in this, bandbox of a ballpark. But got to keep the team in the game. And I think especially the key for Jameson Taillon. Like, this Astros offense has guys, if you're going to screw around and throw the ball in the middle of the plate, not be able to put guys away with 2 strikes, lead off walks, and too much. I feel like we've seen it so much for the last few weeks, getting beat by like the 8-9 hitters in other lineups, rolling the lineup over because you can't get that 9 hitter out, or you're walking that 9 hitter, things like that. Got to have better efforts, because if you come with a bad effort on the mound against this Astros team in their ballpark, it's not going to be a pretty weekend. Cade Horton, he's been doing great. I'm go out, do your thing, see what you can do. But for the other guys, I feel more in a position to be like, you guys got to be better than you've been. You got to give this offense a chance to at least compete in the game. Don't dig a big hole early. And if the offense gets you back in the game, don't take them out of it right away, which is just too much that we've seen from these guys in their last few starts. So that's what I have on that Houston series.
Yeah. I mean, let this just be like some form of motivation for Colin Ray, because I just been doing a lot of slander the last couple weeks. Like, I know what to expect, but I expect better than like what it's been. Like, he's got to find a way to just eat some innings and keep the Cubs in the game. That's it to me. Jameson Taillon, I'm used to bounce back starts after a bad one, but it's been bad the last 2. So I'm with you, Corey, on those 2 guys. I think the Cubs will have an opportunity to win the series if those 2 guys show up. If they do not show up, they're not going to win the series. Yeah. I mean, and to expect anything really from Cade Horton is unfair. I mean, he's been awesome, right? But you got to remember, he's a rookie pitcher, and the Astros are a good team. Like, he could easily go down to Houston tomorrow and get shelled, and really, like, I won't be mad at him. Like, he's been awesome, So
he won't, but yeah,
I agree. I don't think he will either.
What are we doing over here?
I'm just saying that, like, they need the guys that that actually have like real expectations to help this team. Yeah. To show up and just keep the Cubs in the game, because the bullpen is bounced back since the Mariners series, and so I'm looking at those 2 guys to show up and keep the Cubs in the game and keep the offense rolling. Kyle Tucker hit a homer every day this weekend. I'll be betting it.
It would be nice if I would like Kyle Tucker to have a weekend that makes everybody in Houston think that you traded this man, this man.
I'm curious how Astros
with
fans
his
feel about
160 WRC plus.
Right. I am curious how Astros fans feel about Cam Smith. Like, they probably still thinking about the future, like kind of how we do with Matt Shaw. But, Cam Smith has been a fine player, but obviously it's not been like the spring training he had, So
he's been above average, though. Like, Corey and I were having this discussion.
Yeah.
We were having this discussion.
Well, I don't care about it, but yeah.
Yeah. I don't care about it either. But it will be interesting.
Me neither.
It will be interesting because he has 250 plate appearances of above average offensive production as a 22-year-old with no AAA time. It's possible the Cubs misevaluated who they traded for Tucker. Not the trade, but who they traded for Tucker. Now, I would have traded Smith as well if you're choosing between Smith and Shaw, because Shaw has the track record, the more playing time, and so on. But Shaw has undeniably been less productive in a surprising way that makes me believe there may have been a misevaluation on Cam Smith.
Well, and I do think that's the more I will never, obviously, as much as I'm enjoying this, I will never regret taking the big swing and bringing Kyle Tucker here for a year. There is no reason they shouldn't keep him here long term. I don't care what the dollar amount is. I don't know what more you want him to do to prove that he's worth it. But the key to that trade is not whether you re-sign him. It's whether you evaluated what the price was correctly, because that's ultimately what the front office has to get right. And that's true of this upcoming deadline. If you decide, hey, we're going to keep Kevin Alcantara, but we're going to trade Owen Casey, you got to get that calculation right. And sometimes the other teams, maybe they want a certain guy. It's not that simple. Sure. But like, those are the decisions that really end up mattering. You got a great player at the trade deadline. The Cubs are probably going to get some really good or even great players. That's good process. You need good and great players to try to win a World Series. But the internal evaluation of who you're shipping off, who you're getting returned, things like that, that's the key. So I think that is where we will leave you. Again, just setting the table here. Your first place Chicago Cubs, finish this series with St. Louis. They are 48-33. They have a 3-game lead on the Brewers in the division, and they have the second best record in all of the National League, trailing just the 51-win Los Angeles Dodgers. And they go up against their counterpart almost exactly, the second best team in the American League, the 48-win Houston Astros this weekend, who trail only the 51-win Detroit Tigers. So these are the second best teams in their respective leagues right now, going head to head. Let's win a series. Let's beat a good team. And we will be, Cody and the boys will be with you on Sunday. Brendan and I will be back with you next Thursday. And as always, go Cubs.
We all silly like the mayor.